So I'm trying to see how much I can get out. So we're just going to keep going. And the next topic is going to be, why do men lie and tell you, because it is a lie. Or maybe it's a lie at its highest form, but to some men it might be the truth because they themselves might believe that it doesn't matter, but it does. Um, but why do some men try to talk you out of not wanting to have sex with them when you know that it's what you want? So why do they not respect the no, basically? Or, yeah, when you express however you decide to express disinterest in engaging in sex with a man, why does he come up with excuses? Why does he tell you that it doesn't matter? Why does he, when it really does? Why does he, you know, keep going, act in violent ways, all of that kind of stuff? So there are a lot of whys. So let's tackle it based on how he responds. So if he just, he isn't outright rape you, but he, like, you express, maybe I'm waiting until sex, or maybe I'm waiting until this, and then his response is, um, aren't we grown? What are some other responses? Didn't you have sex before? You're not a virgin? Like, why all of a sudden are you deciding? They're gonna come up with everything that they can to try to move you off your square. And the reason for that is because it's very simple. They want to have sex with you, so of course they're gonna say whatever they can and do whatever they can. And if they don't have the gift of gab, or they're not smooth talking like that, then they're gonna take the physical route and just hold you down. And it just is what it is at this point. Like, I don't want to minimize anybody's experience, but we are talking about the whys. We're not talking about the whats. We're not talking about the trauma. This is not what this video was for, because we could talk about the trauma and all of that all day. But the whole purpose is the whys, like the hows and the whys. So the whys are because he wants what he wants, but he's gonna try to get it by any means necessary. And there are a lot of people out there like that. He just chooses to do that with sex because to him it's a need. It's something that maybe he's lacking. It's something maybe he feels like he needs. It's a way that he has taught himself to cope. Whatever his function and his need is for it, he's trying to get it from you, and he's gonna get it by any means. So how do you love him? Basically, you're gonna love him by sticking to your guns, having your boundaries and sticking to them. So let's tackle this situation by situation. Now, if it is just a case where you explain to him, like, hey, I want to wait for whatever reason, maybe it's until marriage, maybe it's until I get to know you better, whatever boundary you decide you want to put up when it comes to sex, when you state your boundaries and he has a rebuttal to it, you can handle it a couple of different ways. You can, like, let's say you guys are out on a date. Well, really, you shouldn't, like, nowadays, guys, I don't ever want it to be misconstrued that I'm saying that there's something that women can do to put themselves in a position to be raped. Like, that is never acceptable. There is never a situation where a woman asked for that. But we're living in a time now where you just have to use your discernment. So it's literally at a point where you shouldn't even go on a date with a man until you know whether or not he can respect your boundaries surrounding sex. So you guys should have that conversation before you even agree to the first date, because if it comes to the point where he is somebody who can't handle knowing he's going to be the one to hold you down, you don't want to find that out on the date. You want to find that out during the conversation. And so I'm going to talk to you guys about how we can, kind of figure that out during the conversation, like where he is with it. If he has any negative, like if he has any rebuttal to your boundaries, That is a red flag that we cannot afford to overlook at this point in time. There's no other conversation that needs to be had. There's no convincing him. There's no anything, because he already showed you that he does not respect you. He already showed you what his main goal is. And if that's your main goal too, then that's not really what this video is about, because this video is about if he didn't respect your boundaries. But if your goal is to have sex too, then go ahead, because that's a way for you to know what he's on. But if he respects you, one, he's not going to bring it up, so you're going to have to bring it up. And then when you do bring it up, he's going to avoid the conversation. Like, he's just going to be like, look, we don't have to talk about that right now, like, you know, whatever. And that's also, that could be a manipulation tactic, but it's still not a red flag until it is a red flag. So I would say if you bring it up and he says we don't have to talk about that anymore, listen to what your heart and your gut is saying. If your heart and your gut saying that he's being true, he's truly a man of integrity, and he really just does not want to have that conversation, like you could tell like your gut is saying you can trust him, then maybe you can go on the first date. But again, your gut is going to tell you, he's saying that, but there's something else to it. Probe a little bit longer, have some more conversations. Do not go on that first date until your gut says it's okay to move forward. Okay, so that's why he doesn't respect the boundary. And then how do we still love him? By listening to your gut. By listening to your gut. We cannot depend on men, on other women, on anybody to set boundaries for us, or to even, like, people don't have to, like, I think it can be misconstrued a lot of times where, like, when the conversation is had, usually it's had like, why didn't you set the boundaries? And usually it's because we have been taught that, like, when we did set boundaries, nobody respected it. But we've never been given instruction on what to do when somebody doesn't respect our boundaries. So naturally, the response is going to be, well, maybe my boundary was too firm. Maybe that wasn't the right boundary, because I'm not getting the reaction that I want out of it. Like, I still like him. It's just that I don't want him to touch me right now. Like, I don't know you like that. Don't touch me. And because we haven't been giving instruction in how to have those conversations in a way to where we're hurt, and whatever, it just escalates, and it gets to a point where it's just not a good situation for anybody involved. Because there's some men who just totally, they don't understand it, because they themselves haven't been taught the correct way to have boundaries themselves, and how to have that conversation with women. Like, I think we've talked about in other videos, some men are encouraged, some men are pressured by their peers to violate women. And it's not put to them as a violation, it's put to them as that's what men do. And then we as women in turn are taught to accept that behavior from them, because again, that's what men do. And it's not acceptable. Like, it's not okay. It's not okay. We as women and men have the right to say, I don't want you to, don't touch, like, I don't want you to touch me. I don't know you. Just as well as women have the right to say, I don't want you to touch me. I don't know you. Men have the right to say, I want to wait to have sex until we get to know each other better. We're married. Just like women have the right to be able to say that. And it doesn't matter if they've had sex before, and it doesn't matter if they haven't had sex before, and it doesn't matter what they did yesterday, and it doesn't matter what they didn't do yesterday. None of that matters. It's what their boundary is right at this moment. If I say no, it is no. Simple. If he says no, it's no. Simple. Okay, so that's how we're going to love each other. Hold each other, like, respect each other's boundaries, and make sure that we are firm in our boundaries, understanding what our boundaries are, like having that conversation with yourself. What are you comfortable with on the first date? You might be okay with kissing on the first date. You might be okay with him touching your hand. You might be okay with even having sex. Not every woman is going to be okay with that. Not every man is going to be okay with that. So, knowing what you're okay with on a personal level and being able to communicate that with that other person is going to be how we're going to navigate the situation and make it a better, safer experience for everybody involved. Because it doesn't have to be this Me Too thing. Because I honestly think there are some men who are just disgusting, and there are some men who just are victims of foolishness that they've been taught. And so when we have these conversations, we can get a little bit further away from Me Too movements because it's not needed. We can get further away from having to vet a person before you go on a date. Like, what is that? Like, what? I don't know if this has always been the case, but like, I want to live in a world where a guy can ask me on a date and I can go without having to worry that he's gonna violate me. Like, that I'm gonna have to, like, tell him, I don't want you to touch me. Like, that should be common sense. We don't know each other. Why are you touching me? We do not know each other. And I know in a perfect world, we want to love each other. Kumbaya, all of that stuff. Great. But we don't live in that world. Do not touch people you don't know. Ask for permission. In all cases, ask for permission to hold her hand. Ask for permission to open the door for her. That's going to be the safest route for men. Now I'm talking to the men. You want to avoid the situation at all costs and make sure that you're being respectful in all aspects. Ask her for permission for everything. Everything. Can I all the way up to can I call you? And if she disses you, then you have a decision to make at that point because that's not normal. She shouldn't be dissing you for asking for permission. She should respect you for that because you deserve respect for offering her respect. And if she disses you, that's because she's used to men who disrespect her. And so you can have that conversation with her and say, hey, that's just how I roll. Like, that's just me. I'm going to ask permission. Don't allow the fact that she disses you to change your behavior because you don't want to be that guy who's accused of something when just because you didn't ask permission. And you don't want to be that girl who ends up on a date and it goes left because you didn't set the proper boundaries and you weren't clear with yourself on what it is that you want. And I know I haven't, like, it wasn't until recently I ran across a curriculum, a sex ed curriculum where, it asks you to sit down and think about what levels of touching, what levels of intimacy you're comfortable with in a relationship. And that was the first time, and I'm almost 32. That's the first time that I have ever really sat down and made a clear decision with myself about what I was comfortable with. Now, I have thought about it before, but it was always after the situation had happened, and I'm reflecting and I'm like, why did that happen? Like, I didn't want that to happen, so why did it still happen? And I couldn't, like, figure out what was going on. Like, to me, a man should already know that, like, we don't know each other, don't touch me. Like, and the fact that he didn't know, like, I didn't know how to navigate that. So, like, really being able to sit down and think and make a plan and be able to communicate it effectively with your partner or with somebody that you're getting to know is going to be key. That's how we're going to love each other through the situation. That's how we're going to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings, unnecessary acts of violence. That's how we're going to avoid it all. We need to be clear with ourselves and we need to be clear with each other. And we need to notice the red flags because it's always going to be those one or two that are just disgusting, like I said, that are just mentally ill and then just don't care. There's always going to be one or two of those. So we got to be mindful of those as well for the men and for the women. It's not just women who encounter people who are mentally ill and want to force sex on them. There are men who have experienced that as well. So, yeah, the end of this video and probably the end of my filming today. Thank you for watching, and until next time.